we are switching to a little bit of notes, like actual written notes with words. So this is, like I said, the beginning of supply, and as I mentioned, this is very similar and deja vu to demand. You'll find that there's a lot of similarities and yet differences. Okay, so first thing we're starting off with is a formal definition for supply. In your warm-up, I asked you for what you thought supply means, and that's fine. You were starting with what you think and what you know, and we got pretty close anyways, okay? So supply is desire and ability to produce and sell a product, okay? So when we say, it's very similar to when we talked about demand, when we say desire to sell a product, to produce and sell a product, okay? We started with babysitting as an example, okay? You have to have the desire to babysit in order to supply babysitting services. If you hate kids, you're not going to babysit, okay? Same principle with any other product produced out there, whether that be a good or a service. You have to like it in order to produce it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work and you're not going to be very successful, okay? So supply is going to be talking about when we have the desire and ability to produce a product. All right, so just like demand, we have a law. We have a law of supply. So the law of supply says that price and quantity supplied are directly related. So price and quantity supplied are directly related. So what does that mean, directly related? As one increases, the other increases. So as we have our price here increase, if we were, for example, offering Cheetos for sale, okay? If we're offering Cheetos for sale and we have Cheetos on the menu in our store, as the price of Cheetos increases, we are willing to offer more Cheetos for sale as the price increases. Why do we do that? Why are we more willing to do that? That's demand. Has nothing to do with their willingness to pay. This is willingness to offer for sale. Why is it that you are willing to offer more babysitting services for sale as they increase the price? You get more money, more profit, all right? So the reason I started with the babysitting thing is because you can relate to babysitting. You babysat before. You at least understand how babysitting works, okay? Now we got to transfer that to actual other products out there, like, for example, Cheetos, okay? However, if we say the price goes down, okay, we're going to be less willing to offer Cheetos for sale. Okay? Same idea as when I decreased the price of babysitting services, and you said, no way am I babysitting anybody for $2 an hour. Okay? I don't care who they are. All right? Same thing in the case of anytime we're talking about any other product, whether that be Cheetos or cars or computers or whatever. Okay, as you decrease the price, suppliers are less willing to offer it for sale. They have production costs. They have things that they have to pay for. And they say, you know what, it's not even worth it. Same thing when I talked about decreasing the price of babysitting, especially if you have to drive there yourself, gas prices alone are not going to be covered by $2 an hour, right? Okay, so that's the idea of the law of supply. Now, this compares to the law of demand when we said they were indirectly related and they went in different directions. Law of supply, they go the same direction. Price and quantity go the same direction. Okay, so believe it or not, we've already gotten to the point where we're talking about changes in supply. So how can supply change? So what were the two ways that demand could change? Okay, two ways demand can change. Change in quantity demand and change in demand. Guess what? There's two ways supply can change. Change in quantity supplied and change in supply. So first thing we have is a change in quantity supplied. This is an increase or decrease in the quantity offered for sale at prices. And what happens is that our quantity will change because the price changes. And we're moving along the same supply curve. So very similar to when we talked about demand. Very similar. So all we're doing here is that we're talking about that we're talking about the amount supplied is changing due to the price. Okay? The amount supplied is changing due to the price. So remember when we talked about quantity supplied and we said this was the key here? Okay? It's the key again. Okay? So all we're changing with a change in quantity supplied versus a change in quantity demand is that we're just talking about supply rather than demand. That's it. It's still only resulting from a change in price. So what does this look like on our supply curve? Well, when we talked about quantity demand, what did it look like?
Just movement from
Point to point on our demand curve. Okay? Guess what? On supply, it's going to be point to point as well. So here's our original supply curve. I straightened it out a little bit, just like when we straightened out our demand curve. When we talked about individual and market demand, if you're talking about a whole market demand, it ends up being a straight diagonal line. Same thing with supply. Here's our straight diagonal line. And all we're doing for a change in quantity supplied is we're looking at from one point, point A, to another point, point B. And the only thing that changed is the price. Would you all do me a favor and collapse your iPads? It seems to be distracting for some individuals. Okay, so all we're changing here is we're changing the price, and as a result, our quantity changes. We're just moving up and down the same supply curve. Now notice it looks different than when we talked about demand because it's upward sloping, okay? It throws people off, okay? Because what we're looking at here is that when we're increasing our price, we're going from A to B, and our quantity is increasing. When we're going from B to A, our price is decreasing, our quantity is decreasing, okay? Make sure you draw that in your notes, okay? Because again, it'll be helpful later on when you're having to talk about examples. Okay, change in supply. Change in supply is going to be just similar to when we talked about a change in demand. Okay, so a change in supply is an increase or decrease in the amount supplied at every price caused by 6 factors. It's a shift in the supply curve. So what we're doing here is that the amount supplied at every price is going to change. Okay, and we're shifting the supply curve. So the amount of supplied at every price is going to change. And remember when we talked about the change in demand? Okay, and change in demand, we had 6 things that caused a change in demand. And those 6 things shifted the demand curve either to the right or to the left. Change in supply, we also have shifts. We have 6 things that cause a change in supply. But they're not the same things, because suppliers don't care about the same things that consumers care about. Remember, you as a supplier, when you are supplying babysitting services, okay, you are concerned about you making money. You don't care about what the parents' problems are, right? You don't care about how much money they have. You don't care about the number of other particular babysitters out there. You care about making money for you. That's the way you got to think about as a supplier. You're kind of selfish. Okay? So, anybody remember, what are those 6 things that cause a change in demand? Income, substitutes, expectations, taste, market size, what are we missing? Complements. Those were the 6 things that cause a change in demand. Those are not the same things that cause a change in supply. Okay? However, the principle is the same. We're still shifting our curve. So what this looks like, and this looks different, okay? So since we have this upward sloping curve, this throws people off. You're used to looking at demand. So you're used to looking at demand, you're used to looking at a downward sloping curve, and used to looking at a shift, a right shift and left shift that way, okay? Now, here's what I want to ask you before I tell you. We're looking at this upward sloping curve here. Okay? Do you imagine that our supply, let's say a right shift in supply, no, left shift in supply. Left shift in supply, is left shift in supply going to be above the curve here, option 1, or below the curve here on option 2? How many say option 1 above the curve? Left shift in supply would be option 1 above the curve. How many say left shift in supply would be below the curve? Okay, guys, facing this graph, which one's my left hand? Okay, here's my left hand. I'm going left.
Because you're gonna, his price is up there, so you're gonna be making more money.
Left. Okay, so you're moving to the left, you're decreasing the supply. Your left shift in supply is going to be above your curve. Now that one throws people off consistently because you look at it and you're like, it's above the curve, so doesn't that mean it's an increase in supply? No, and I'll show you why. So then a right shift in supply, well, I'll show you why. So let's take out our price at any particular point, and we did this before, we talked about demand. So here's our price, and we're extending it out to our original supply curve. Here's my original quantity. Okay, there's my original price, my original quantity. Okay, looks good. Now, if we have something happen, for example, when you're talking about babysitting, okay, what would affect your willingness to babysit, other than price? The kids. Okay, what else? What do you have to do?
Hours.
Okay,
Your
The
schedule.
what?
Hours.
the hours, so maybe how long I have to babysit?
Your schedule.
Your schedule, okay? So a lot of these things will affect your willingness to babysit. So let's say, for example, most of the time now that you're at the age where you can actually drive and you probably have your own car, you probably have to drive to the place where you're going to babysit, yeah? Okay? What if the price of gas goes up? What happens to your willingness to babysit? What if it's going to cost you a whole bunch more to be able to drive there? You're going to probably be less willing to babysit at every single price, and we have a left shift in supply. Okay? So what happens is that at every single price I pick along the way, okay, you're going to have be less willing to offer babysitting services. Okay? So what you see happening is at this particular price, here's our original quantity, here's our new quantity when we have our left shift. Okay? Whereas if I had a right shift, maybe, for example, the price of gas goes down. Right? The price of gas goes down, I'm sure I'll babysit because, you know, it costs me less to get there. All right? And you can tell this because as I extend my price line out, my quantity is going to be that much greater at every single price. It doesn't matter what price I pick along the way, it's going to happen at every single price. So left shift, while it looks different, is still a decrease. Right shift, while it looks different than demand, it's still an increase. All right, we'll talk more about this tomorrow about what causes a change in supply.